Madagascar is one of Africa's most recognizable islands. Located in the Pacific Ocean, this country is still a pretty mysterious place for a lot of people, with its charming wilderness and its people's diverse traditions and beliefs. And that's why in today's video, we will be talking about the weirdest things you can find in Madagascar that you will never be able to find anywhere else. First up, we will have a little sneak peek at the history of Madagascar and find out a little more about one of its most famous historical figures, and it will be none other than the Mad Queen herself, Ranavalona. The Malagasy land and its people are living proof that Madagascar is indeed one of those places where you feel like you are disconnected from the world, a little like Bhutan and Nepal. That's why a lot of its history went uncovered. You might have heard about her from the Flashman series or one of those historical documentaries. Unfortunately, she isn't as well known as other queens from different cultures. The reason why she was named the Mad Queen was because of how ruthless she was against colonizers. She thwarted European efforts to invade Madagascar during her 33 years of rule, but also focused her energies on brutally eradicating Christians, Westerners, neighboring kingdoms, and political rivals alike. And whenever she had the chance, she would get rid of one of her rivals. The queen used to order her army to purge her enemies, and they wouldn't stop until they fully got rid of their target. The queen didn't stop there. She was also famous for her repeated usage of slave labor to construct a huge palace and public spaces for the people. The tyrant queen wasn't any less harsh to her people. Her violent executions made the population fall from 5 million to 2.5 million between 1833 and 1839, deducting almost half of its initial population in only 6 years. Now, here's the part that makes this queen appear in a more unique and disturbing way. Ranavalona was known for her Tangina ordeal, by which the accused was poisoned and then forced to eat 3 pieces of chicken skin. Death, or the failure to regurgitate all 3 pieces, indicated guilt and a salmonella infection. But when she didn't feel like tormenting the people, she threw her opponents into vast ravines. Now that we got rid of the scary part, it's time to talk about what makes Madagascar a beautiful place. Its wildlife. According to Conservation International, only 17 countries around the world are considered diverse when it comes to animals and plants, and Madagascar is one of those countries. The island possesses a vast number of species, differing in type and breed, with many not being found anywhere else. That's thanks to its vast green areas and the minimized human interactions that contributed to the overgrowth of the animal population. Among its resident animals are more than half the world's chameleons and dozens of species of lemur, and a great deal of rare animals like the aye-ayes, lemurs, tomato frogs, sifakas, fossa, and more. Moving on to the Malagasy culture and traditions, fady is an important part of the Malagasy culture. It is literally translated to taboo, but can also mean that something is sacred, and the concept covers certain customs and traditions, as well as moral guidelines. Azafady is the Malagasy word for please or excuse me, and it means may it not be fady to me. Some fady apply all over Madagascar, such as never pointing at a grave, or pregnant women shouldn't be eating eels, but some fady are village, tribe, or family specific. Fady can pertain to animals, such as never hunting a certain type of lemur because of folklore, or places such as sacred waterfalls and mountain reserves like Montagne d'Ambre that must be protected. Most fady have interesting stories behind them. Local guides are aware of fady and will explain them to guests. Travelers should always be respectful of the fady and never cross the line between what the Malagasy culture sees as moral or immoral. Of course, what's a country's cultural value without some folkloric tales and stories? The Malagasy tales aren't as well known as the ones in many other countries. However, the most famous one is about why dogs sniff each other's butts. The story goes, before humans were on Earth, there has been a big pack of wild dogs all accrued around their dog god to listen to who he might choose to be their king. Just as the dog god started to say, "The dog king is," one of the dogs in the crowd farted. The dog god became furious and said, "Who farted? I will not tell you who your king is until someone confesses." No one confessed. So now, whilst dogs meet each other, they sniff each other's butts to see if the other dog is the one who farted. Traditions vary from one area to another. In Madagascar, it's a common practice that when a woman gives birth, the midwife offers the umbilical cord and attached placenta to the father. Traditionally, it became his duty to bury them under a flat stone at the entrance of the ancestral home. Nowadays, in urban areas, it is buried in a place across the house in an area that's unlikely to be polluted in any way. While burying this, the father makes sure never to turn his head. This burial symbolizes the perpetuation of the lineages, and in Malagasy beliefs, a newborn whose umbilical cord is lost, very tadi poatra, or now no longer buried, buried in the way it must be, the child will grow up to be a forgetful adult. Staying with the newborn-related practices. Upon their 3rd month after they were born into this world, a Malagasy baby will go through what's called alavola, or the hair-cutting ceremony. A man or woman in the baby's family with beautiful hair, a tubolo, is invited to cut the infant's hair and put it on a large plate or bowl. The cut hair is then blended with honey and tuberous roots such as sweet potatoes. At this point, the family members eat this mixture. This is a form of a rite of passage that permits the infant to fully integrate into society. In Malagasy society, respecting one's elders is a traditional custom that is still rigidly practiced, especially in rural areas. Once a meal is served, nobody is allowed to pick up their cutlery before the elder does. The elderly of the house are basically the head of the family, and they may be a father, a mother, a grandmother, or a grandfather. These elderly figures are considered to be the most influential in traditional Malagasy families. When the food is served, everybody should wait until the oldest person or people in the room lift their spoon and start eating. Then the rest of the family can start as well. The respect for elderly is shared in many other cultures, like in Japan, India, Korea, and Senegal. But it seems like Madagascar takes it up a notch on this one. Funerals in Madagascar are quite strange on their own. But of course, with the different cultures around the world having their mourning traditions, it isn't short of interesting when it comes to famadihana, an extremely well-known practice for the Malagasy people. This practice, dubbed turning of the bones, involves exhuming the remains of one's relatives, wrapping them in clean silk shrouds, lambda, and then dancing across the tomb with them. Elaborate tombs are adorned with artwork and carvings that relate to the life story and unfulfilled desires of the deceased. And the tombs are often topped with the skulls of zebu that have been sacrificed throughout the funeral rites. Finally, we keep the best for last. And since a lot of people forget that martial arts are indeed a core component of a nation's culture, just like how karate and kendo define the Japanese culture, Muay Thai and Thai culture, capoeira and Brazilian culture, and so on. So, in Madagascar's case, we have Maraini. Maraini is a bare-fisted, weaponless traditional Madagascan martial art that is practiced in general in the coastal regions and has even spread to neighboring islands like the Comoros and Reunion. It's also referred to as Madagascan kickboxing and is an extreme form of martial arts among fighters who battle while traditional music blares in the background. This music serves to induce a trance-like state that offers the fighters a spiritual significance. Traditionally, fights could take place on a Sunday after the first complete moon of the month, but nowadays you can enjoy the battles on almost every weekend or market day. Skills and strategies are passed down through generations, and men who are Marengi combatants are referred to as Fanyuralehi. Recently, women have started taking part too, and they're referred to as Fanyuravavi. Winners are widely respected and even feared. While a lot of people prefer picking destinations that are much more famous compared to Madagascar, it's hard to deny that this island is extremely underappreciated. With its varied wildlife, beautiful landscapes, and unique lifestyle, it's safe to assume that once a lot of people start recognizing how amazing of a place it is, they won't hesitate on visiting it to experience the unusually beautiful Malagasy life. That's it for today's video. What else do you think is a weird practice or habit in Madagascar that makes you feel both curious and fascinated with the island? Did we miss any of them? Let us know in the comments down below. See you on a brand new video. Goodbye.